Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Big Screen Show. My name is Victor,
I'm Jorge.
I'm Alex.
and we are back with a special guest here for our Blue Beetle episode. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Jazz. Actually, it's Jasmine Salonga. My dad's name is Jeff. So if you think about me, I am not only Latino on my mother's side, but I'm also Filipino on my dad's side. I grew up in a military family, so I traveled all over the country. So I didn't learn as much Spanish as Jorge or Victor here.
Nice.
That's about it.
Okay, yeah, nice. So Blue Beetle, special episode. We have a special guest, another Latino, joining us for this one. Since this was, I'd like to say, the first time we've seen a big superhero on the big screen with Latino heavily influenced. Am I right in saying that? I feel like I
think
am.
so. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd bring you in. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited. But
I'm excited to be here.
Yes.
Nice.
Welcome, Jeff.
yes.
Glad to have you.
So, general thoughts. Blue Beetle. I want to go last. Everybody go. I want to hear you guys' general thoughts on this movie. Whoever wants to go first, and go ahead.
I will.
Go ahead,
So
Jeff.
I had a blast with the movie. There's a lot of Latinos born here because I live in the valley where the Rio Grande separates us from Mexico. So a lot of the audience were Latinos. So when something that was familiar to Latino culture, we all laughed at that.
Right.
And what I liked about the movie was not only the humor, but also the action, how much family was emphasized, and the fact that the family was there to help the hero. The hero wasn't just all alone, brooding and working for the shadows.
Yeah.
This was basically a guy around my age trying to figure out his life that happened to get into this crazy ass shit.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Alex or
What
Jorge,
was
whoever.
what was your rating though?
Oh, 8 out of 10. The story, the setup, the family, and the culture represented were really good. Although I believe there was a few missteps here and there, such as with the villain. Like, we could have had his story spaced out more instead of just info dump at the end, and maybe a bit more bonding time with the Scarab, so we could see Jaime slowly getting along with Kajita before that. But otherwise, I really like this movie.
Nice.
Okay. Who? Alex?
Yeah. For me, I give the movie 8 out of 10. Mostly because first of all, partly I think we're gonna talk about this later where you guys talk about more, but I feel like it probably had one of best representation for a Latino superhero that's actually been done well in live action that's been done well in live action so far now. But I think mostly like it because the humor actually felt more real, authentic. I love the heavy emphasis on the Latino culture and the family and the support, which is a very strong point with the Blue Beetle character with Jaime Reyes, where I thought was done brilliantly, I think flawlessly. Also the movie just gave real good heart and emotion towards the aspect of family and what the character has to go through on this journey. And I do agree that the villains in the movie were they were kind of a bit simple, not much context to it, except for the main antagonist that's fighting with Jaime Blue Beetle. But I think they actually sit through a purpose on Latino culture and Latino people and how they're kind of used as well. It's even with the main villain antagonist of the movie, Victoria Cord, who is basically the main antagonist of the film. But overall, I just love the actual really good authentic humor with the family and heart and stellar action, as well as using a lot more practical locations, practical suits and stuff with no overemphasization of VFX or anything like that, which is a major step up compared to some other superhero movies that we're all used to for the past 10 years or so. So I think this movie felt really refreshing and just had a very good, strong story point where there's like no like real like large stakes, but it's just more simple, straightforward, and it's a more personal journey, which I think the movie was like really great for that and just felt so fresh. So 8 out of 10 for me.
Nice.
Go ahead, Jorge.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, I gave the movie a 6 out of 10. I think the movie has a lot of positives, but I also think it has a lot of negatives. I do enjoy the positives a lot. For example, I think the special effects of the movie, especially the suit, they're perfectly made. I think every scene he has on the suit, you can feel, the character of Blue Beetle. And I really like that because I think it's a mix of like Iron Man with Spider-Man with Deadpool, all in one superhero, and it's pretty refreshing because I think we haven't like seen these kind of like well-made CGI scenes in terms of like suit, putting on the body and everything, since probably Iron Man 2 or 3, like where they really focus on the mechanics of the suit. I also liked a lot the choreography of the fights. I think they're super well directed. Like the action scenes are very powerful. You feel every hit. I really like that a lot. But I think the supporting characters aren't as good and they don't work as well in the movie because I think they kind of steal time from the main character, which is Jaime. I think the movie focuses too much on the supporting characters, especially on the third act. I think they drag the supporting characters too much, whereas they should have put Jaime and Blue Beetle more in the center of the issue. But that's like kind of like subjective. Uh, I really like obviously like the cultural component to the movie of like making like kind of like the first Latino superhero in this industry that we have against with like Marvel, DC. Uh, so I really like that part. But in general, it's a fun movie. I really had a good time. A 6 out of 10 for me. It's not a bad movie, not at all. But I don't think that it's a great movie either. And one thing I do want to mention is that, as Alex and Jazz said before, I think the villains are pretty forgettable. Like, just at the end, you kind of like see the motivation in one of the villains, but that's about it. They don't really give you much content to what they do, like why do they do what they do. And it's kind of like generic and really this really doesn't give like the issue that much importance, in the big scale. But again, like it's a fun movie. I really like the visual effects are on point for me. And yeah, 6 out of 10.
Let me
What
be
about
honest, I forgot about the villain's name. Like, what was his name again?
Yeah, Victor and Caravas, I believe.
Like
Yeah,
Carva, like Carapace?
Yeah, Caravas, the guy.
Conrad Carapax.
Caravas, that's
See,
right.
and on that breath, that's one of my biggest negatives. I think the villains is just it's like you said, like you already forgot the names of them. Like
Yeah,
they're not tying at the just anything really. Like they're not pulling anything. They have nothing. They have nothing that I'm intrigued in when I watch a villain. Right, like when I see a Joker on screen, a Reverse Flash on screen. Like I'm expecting
Loki.
to be, yeah, Loki. I mean, the
Especially.
list goes on. Do you want to be really grasped by your villain? And I think it was just like the weakest part of this movie, in all honesty, which was disappointing. But I don't think the movie is bad at all. If anything, I'm actually pleasantly surprised by how good this movie was as far as what my expectations go into it were. I even at one point thought it could have possibly been worse than The Flash before I saw it. Uh,
those
We
are
gonna
those
talk
are
about. We gonna
big
talk about
words
here. We
right
gonna talk
there.
about here.
I never once thought it was gonna be worse than the Flash. That'd be
Hey.
impossible.
Nobody.
Holy
I don't think
moly.
anybody can get worse than that.
No. It could.
Hey.
It could.
hey, I'm just saying. I thought it was, and I'm happy that it was not. Clearly,
Yeah, gladly
it
it
de-
wasn't.
yes, it definitely
Thank
wasn't.
God.
But yeah, my rating for it is a 7 out of 10. I actually, like I said, was pleasantly surprised by the movie. I think like y'all said, the action in this movie really shines. I think it's actually really good.
Yeah.
The choreography in it, the CG as well. I think, Jorge, I think you're right. Like the suit in this is like so cool. Like the way
Fire.
it like the way he turned from just Jaime to Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
Every time it happened, it was so seamless and so cool.
Yeah.
Although he's got to figure out a way to have his not be naked after every time he comes back.
I don't mind.
He'll work it out, I'm sure, since this is just his origin story. But yeah,
Right.
I think the family is another. How can I say this? I'll say partly a negative for me. I just think at times the family was just like too much. I really do. I think like the grandma is like the whole bit with the grandmother is a little bit too much. But without going into details, I didn't mind it, but I'm just saying I don't think it's necessarily a positive. I just think it does more bad than good sometimes, because I feel like I think I didn't even think about this earlier, but I think a great point you made, Jorge, is it's taking so much shine away from Blue Beetle. Like I feel like I was like, yes, it's obviously the Blue Beetle movie, but it's more like his family's movie. It's not really like
Right.
focused on him.
It works well on the first act, because it sets the characters, history, like
Yeah.
how he is, his personality. But then
Yeah.
like they drag them to the third act, and it's
Yeah, that was
the movie
like
doesn't work
that.
for me.
That is actually pretty crazy if we look back at it, because like when have we ever seen an origin story movie for a superhero and his whole family just tags along to the boss fight?
Yeah.
Like actually, like it's kind of crazy.
I mean, you
I'm not
definitely
against
say,
it. I'm just saying it's kind of
Fast and the
crazy.
Furious,
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious movie, because that kind of randomly came to
That's
mind.
not fair. That's not
La
fair. That's not
Familia.
fair. They're
brought
all
it
about
up.
family. They're all about
You brought
family.
it up.
That's not fair. What were you
True.
saying, Alex?
Yeah, but I would say that's probably what makes it probably like one of like the most unique, because like really can't think much of a comic book movie or a superhero movie that actually does something like this and like just really commits to it, and because like
Yeah.
it's gotta be a good thing that you stuck with it, and instead of like half-assing it or like not just fully committing to it, without it feeling like a mess.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just saying, I guess for me personally, it was I could have done without it at some points, because I felt like at some points it's just a little bit too much. But like I said, I give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a really decent movie. Like, would I watch it again? Actually, yes, I would. Maybe
me
not
too.
like immediately after, but like it's definitely a movie that like maybe in like 3 months, a friend hasn't seen it yet. He comes to my house, he's like, "Hey, let's watch this." I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, let's watch it," because like I don't mind it. It's actually pretty decent. But yeah, that's pretty much all of my general thoughts. Ratings. So we're all around a similar ballpark with the ratings, so that's good. But I think it's fair to say general consensus is not a bad movie. If you want to go see it, definitely go see it. We recommend it
I'd highly recommend go see it.
yeah, we definitely recommend go see it, because it's definitely not a bad time whatsoever. So but with that being said, if you haven't seen the movie yet, this is your spoiler warning. Please click off the video. We will be getting into some details right now. So if you don't want it spoiled, you have been warned. So with that being said, I think first we should talk about the plot, right? I think, Jazz, why don't you start us off? What were your thoughts on the plot? Let us know, just anything you have to say about the plot itself.
Okay, from a storytelling standpoint, I think the plot was kind of basic, but it was actually well structured and well paced for the most part. Like, we get the hero's calling, then we get the hero rejecting the call, then the acceptance, and then the big fight, and then all of that necessary steps that you expect. And some of it kind of actually being okay. Some of the plot beats that you expect would drag on longer don't drag on as long as you would think, thankfully, such as the hero's moping. Like, I liked how the Nana was like, "Okay, no time for self-pity. We go to action."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, the ending may be a bit cheesy, and the romance kind of predictable, but overall, the plot was pretty good. You could follow it easily enough, and it helps keep the story intact.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. Like, the story is this whole plot of the movie is pretty simple and basic, but I think also because it's so simple and doesn't get overcomplicated, it's more a message on like Blue Beetle, Jaime, and his family, and him finding his strength to like go on to this new journey of him being a superhero. Works very well and helps keep it more personal with him, as well as the connection with his family, since they're in the movie they're really kind of made to be like the main characters in this, which makes sense because even like the director of the film even said they wanted to place emphasis on like Jaime and his family as the main parts of it, because like you mentioned about in Latino culture how like the family is meant to be strong and resilient. Because even in the movie because even in the comics, Blue Beetle was a like person who cared about his family and his friends, and like one of his major strong points, where they were always there for him. He always tried to be there for them, protecting each other, and they're always just meant to be like strong and courageous, even in like tough odds. And I think that represented to the film like very well in helping with like Jaime trying to sync and be and bond with the scared Kajita, was basically trying to protect his family from like Victoria Cord and Carapax. That's basically her enforcer for trying to capture Jaime,
The
which I think is
Bettle.
done pretty well. Simple enough.
Sure. Jorge?
Well, kind of the same. Like, I don't have much to add to what Alex and Jazz said. The plot is pretty basic. Uh, it works well with the character because it's also not a big character and it's a localized story, so the plot doesn't have to be too complicated either, especially for an introduction of a character. I do want to mention that one of the problems I have with the plot is that I don't see enough character development with Jaime. I feel that he's the same person at the end of the movie as he starts the movie, in terms, especially personally, because we see him from the beginning of the movie. He's already a family-oriented person, good son, good grandson, good nephew. And at the end of the movie, he's still the same. He didn't have like a major transformation throughout the movie beyond accepting the fact that he had an alien encrusted on his spine and he couldn't, like, he just had to deal with it. But like personally, like I don't feel like he had anything impactful in his life besides his father's death. And even though his father died, like right after his father died, like we see him like just like setting like like charging against like the villains and with the family alone, and with the grandma saying that it's not time to mourn right now, it's not time to cry, that comes later. But still, you don't feel that in the last fights, you don't feel that his father's death has a really
I
big.
didn't even know the dad really died. I kind of thought he
Yeah,
was in the
and I feel
hospital.
that they should have made that like a really big thing for his character and make him like change, like for example Spider-Man did in No Way Home after
Oh,
On's death, like after May's death, like
You know,
he took a.
that's actually just a little different. I would say that's slightly unfair to put on Jaime because
exactly.
historically, that specific death of an
Yeah,
aunt or uncle for Peter Parker is like the greatest shift in his life every time.
right. but,
Canon.
but that's what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
he
Exactly.
has one, and it's portrayed and every like movie we see from like Spider-Man, same as Batman, like
I guess
he.
what I'm trying to say is like it's built into their character since the beginning of time in comics, right? Like Batman, his parents' death is the reason why we're here now. Same thing could be said about Spider-Man. Like Aunt May or Uncle Ben's death is like literally one of the most pivotal things to happen to that character in all iterations at all times. So it's like, should we expect the same out of Blue Beetle? If that's not the case, that's only that. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm just
Right,
asking a question.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I just feel like if you're gonna put it in the movie, make it like impactful to the main character. If not, they'll make a kind of like a big deal out of it. And before his father's death, I actually like his father's role in the movie because it really serves well as the most like emotional balance he has within his family dynamic.
He was holding it down. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
So
was the one that like when everybody was freaking out about the scare at the beginning, he was like, "Guys, we're gonna get through this because we always do." So I agree. I do feel like he was a big rock for the family.
yeah,
I
100%.
do. Oh yeah, he's
Yo
definitely
tengo
was a
la
strong point because again, bringing more to the comics of his side. That's pretty much how it went, even in the comics when when Jaime basically revealed to his family that, hey, I'm the blue. Hey, I got this alien technology attached to my bag and stuff like that. Where the father was like the major strong point to basically saying like, you're still our son. You're no different. But you're gonna struggle a little bit, but it's gonna be an adjustment. He was still like basically a strong point. But I'm still not gonna say that Jaime's father's death didn't do anything because like again the only reason Jaime didn't need that type of development was because like he was already that way since he got like this huge family unit basically like his aunt, his nana, his sister, father and mother and stuff like that. It basically helped him how he basically grew up to be that way. Because like think about it, he basically went to college and he basically came back, and then even though he didn't have any job or prospects or anything like that, his first and foremost thing that he wanted to do was basically help his family out, which shows that he was already a good person
oh
because of the
Exactly.
influence on his family. And
Yeah.
so again, his father did affect him, but the final words to his father when they were doing like this whole like scene where it's his father death in the afterlife thing, he's basically just told his father basically teach him like you're gonna go on and you're gonna be okay because again he's always gonna be with you and he still has his family. So even though that's a very sad moment for him, he knows that he's still not gonna be alone. Whereas people like Batman or Spider-Man, they're still alone, but they do have like these other figures, like family figures that they still have. But all in all, they still kind of go about their journey as heroes by themselves, though. Whereas Jaime, he basically has an identity that he doesn't need to protect since his family knows. Which again goes hand in hand with the comics, where basically his family and his friends know who he is as a Blue Beetle, but he still is able to carry on and still allow him to
And he
go and do
also
it.
has this scarab, which is like an alter ego. It's like Venom, so in some way, like neither Jaime nor like Tom Hardy, like with Venom,
Yeah.
like they're not alone as characters, like they always have like that like subconscious like behind them in a way.
Speaking on the plot, I feel like it had some pretty good funny moments like that in it, where it felt surprisingly refreshing for a DC movie, if I'm being honest, because like with Marvel, I'm more so expecting it than anything, but like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I guess this movie gave us a bit of that, but it wasn't like overdone. I enjoyed that. I liked that. I was
Okay,
pleased with that.
speaking about the plot and being pleasantly surprised, can I springboard on that toward the culture aspect, like specifically around the beginning, if that's all right?
Sure.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, from my notebook because I am that kind of nerd. Bas- Basically, I think I mentioned it earlier, but there are some familiar beats from Latino families. Like for example, around the university I go to, there are first generation college graduates, which is always a big thing for families because they think that means more education, more job opportunities, being able to do something they never were able to because they got to work their backs off, and and then going on to that, there's also the working class. You guys notice how Victoria hired a lot of Latinos to clean up her luxury house?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, while also threatening to take their houses and their neighborhoods for all her fancy houses, for all her new fancy condos and houses, which does unfortunately reflect the real life gentrification by by gringos because they make the hood and then they take the hood, well, at least the Latino hood I would say. But I also did love the setting. Like it reminds me much of downtown McAllen and other places around the tri-state area. Like you know what I'm talking about with Latino art that's painted on or spray painted on the walls, or how buildings
In
are
Miami too.
built. That's
Yeah.
that too. Wait, what's the place in Miami?
Miami, well, I think actually that's exactly where it was filmed, partly. I mean, I will say this, I do have a special little, I guess, a nitpicking issue with this film because so I'm very good with geography, as some of you know, Jazz, maybe you don't know, but to the audience, I'm actually very good with geography. I like to give myself that pat on the back. And while I'm watching this movie in the beginning, after he gets sent up to orbit with the suit for the first time, then he drops down and then he starts flying over the water and goes into a city. All that right there, that's Miami. By the time he stops, which is, again, this is all in the same scene, by the time he stops and the bus scene happens, you can literally see Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the back, and that's here in Atlanta. So it
Oh
was like,
wow.
yeah,
Oh,
no, it's like
Mm,
it was like
no.
immediate,
Good
and I was
catch.
like,
Good catch.
I dislike it when that happens in movies because I get you're gonna fool a lot of people, but I know these places, so I feel like I'm like, I'm like, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
I'm nitpicking. I would never
He's a
take
real
away.
stickler for that
I
type
mean,
of
to be
thing.
fair to them, like the only people who know those places are like people from Atlanta. So, you know.
I mean, fair enough, but I mean, like, not really, because I know. I mean, well, maybe it's just me. Like I said, I'm good with geography, so I just know places. But yeah, so and then when he got back home and they showed this shot from up top, it looked like the house was on the West Coast, like Cali or something. So I don't really
It
know
did. Yeah.
where this movie took place because I just
I
kept seeing
would
so many
think
different locations.
I would think maybe somewhere west, like maybe Cali or somewhere around really close to Mexico.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it
The
was
it's
trying
director
to
definitely
actually,
it's definitely
resemble.
a
yeah,
I
the
think it
director
was
actually
trying to
said I think
resemble a
he
mix
filmed
between
during.
Miami and LA in a
yeah,
Yeah,
way.
one of
actually,
the two for
You know,
sure.
the
like a
yeah, the
combination.
direct
You know.
yeah. Yeah, the director actually said he was basically making the city kind of a blend of like between like Texas, Florida, like Miami, and Puerto Rico, trying to create that mesh blend because
That's
this
the one.
yeah, because even because
Hmm.
like the whole city that the movie takes place in, Palmera City, is actually a place that's actually in DC Comics that
Yeah.
Blue Beetle actually lives in now. And the crazy thing is that the whole Palmera City was actually a fictional city for DC that was actually made like this year in the start of the year for in the latest Blue Beetle comic run, like literally 7 months before the film, like a few months before the film came out.
So it's
So
canon now. It's a canon
yeah,
location.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, especially with Jenny Cord, who's basically is supposed to be Ted Cord's sister. She's actually just made an appearance in the current Blue Beetle comic, so like she's an actual original character canon now too.
I
Although in
thought
her
Jenny was Ted Cord's daughter, or am I getting
no,
mixed up?
yeah, that you're convinced. Jenny Cord is Ted Cord's daughter.
Correct.
Victoria Cord is Ted
His
Cord's
sister.
sister. So yeah,
Correct.
so yeah, I'm not mistaken. Victoria
Oh,
Cord is actually an original character for the Blue Beetle comic run now. It's crazy because the city and the Victoria Cord character are really just recent character and places just this year. So that's
So
actually a
it's
pretty
recently
rare moment.
canon.
Yo, yeah, this is actually a really rare moment in comics where usually something like this that actually happens usually happens when there's like a movie first and then down the line it gets put in the comics. But now it's in comics first and then somehow it got put in the movie now. So I kind of feel like there's kind of like something maybe that the director was going with the DC that kind of help it coincide, which I really like, especially since like how it actually really does look just like how it goes in the comics and stuff. Although in the movie it just does focus more on like the whole like more urban areas where like the Latino community culture is, whereas in the comics it doesn't have that much focus towards it. It gives only like a few areas where it just kind of gives you that like a Miami, Puerto Rico beach and like technologically high culture area and places like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are some really good points about the plot. And also Jazz, thank you for sharing about the culture side of this. I also agree with you with that as well. But with that being said, I think we should talk about um the characters that are in this movie, also specifically, the family. I think they're a big emphasis in this movie and a big driving force for this movie. So, Jazz, why don't you go ahead on that same breath, continue on with that? What are your thoughts on that?
I do love the family, even if they can steal the show at times. Actually, in fact, for this review, I even braided my hair in twin pigtails like the Nana, who's like my favorite family member.
She was badass, but she
Like,
scared me. She scared me.
like That woman had too much joy just shooting that machine gun.
She went. She did. She did. You can tell she did some stuff in the past. She did. She killed some people.
I can imagine. And given given how I have like 2 generations of family members in the military, I got a bit of an idea there. Going on for something lighter. Just a joke I want to mention, but when the Nana used put like that vapor stuff underneath Jaime's nose when he was passed out, the whole audience that I was in with started laughing because
I could imagine. Yeah, that's a very Latino thing. Yeah.
Yes. And it's funny because it's true. Because when I would get sick, I remember how my mom all the time would be like, "Okay, rub the stuff on your chest," or "You got a sore throat, rub the stuff on your chest." Runny nose, rub the stuff on your chest.
It's actually funny you say that because I'm actually dealing with that right now. It's actually funny you mention that because I'm actually dealing with those kind of symptoms right now. So I should probably rub some of that.
Rub some vapor on your chest then and get an ice pack.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny. Yeah, I could totally see how the theater would have laughed at that moment for sure.
It's our cure-all.
Yeah, I laughed. Yeah, but I think I was one of the few Hispanics in my theater. But yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, you're in Georgia.
Yeah, I was more specifically Atlanta, where for this specific movie and specific theater location that I went to, not that many Hispanics, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been down there.
Alex, any thoughts on the characters and family in this movie?
For me, the family is definitely like the major highlight of the film, and probably gives like probably the best comedy bits for me because they were just also hilarious. But I also think they're very important to the plot. Where I did steal the show, but I don't think it's a really bad thing since like family is like a major point and aspect of this. Since Jaime was basically want to help his family, always be there for his family, especially when they're going through these tough times and the whole gentrification. So like, it makes sense that you want to go with them on this journey and just kind of prove that probably best example. Let me know if I'm wrong, you guys. How like Latino family are just basically meant to be strong, resilient, and just always have each other's backs, like no matter what, even the toughest of times. And they really just went and stepped up, being like, "Hey, you gonna take our son, our family? We're gonna come at you with all that we got."
Even painted the word Alamo on the Bugmobile.
Yeah, even that. But I will say, oh, sorry, guys, go ahead. You were saying?
Okay, quick history fact. Okay, real quick. I think it may have said Alamo. I am slightly dyslexic.
It actually said animo.
Yeah. But yeah, what's that meaning? What's the meaning for animo, you guys?
Animo is basically like energy, like effort. I guess is like the best way I can translate that word. So I think it was like a nice way of her painting that on the front of the ship to, I guess, signify like, let's do this with like, energy and effort and stuff like that. So animo.
Okay, but yeah, but I will say the major highlight for like the Reyes family for me was basically George Lopez's role as like Uncle Rudy and stuff like that, where he's basically like this like crazy paranoid like mechanical uncle making these crazy things like that, where he's just always hilarious and just constantly either freaking out or just giving all these conspiracy type stuff where like either the government's listening or Batman being a fascist, which is kind of like a thing that was during like The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, where the whole theory or something, like a social type of studies thing, where Batman was like a fascist type of situation, where he was basically meant to be like this representation of like how his way is like the best way of dealing with the crime and stuff like that. And then again, he was basically going to war against Superman and fighting him, since within that comic, Superman was basically like Ronald Reagan's, the military's private warrior, soldier, and major war and stuff like that. But yeah, Uncle Rudy, George Lopez. I love George Lopez. Like, he's hilarious. Like, I loved him in like the George Lopez show. Oh yeah, he still got it.
I recognize him most as the Chihuahua from the Chihuahua movie. I never watched the sitcom.
I love him as that.
I did not want to talk about that. I've heard the George Lopez show. That's like his most hilarious thing. But he brought that energy back and stuff like that, where I just love it. George Lopez just has never missed a beat with his comedy. I love it. He was a highlight for me. I loved him.
Jorge, what about you? What are your thoughts on some of the characters and the family in this movie?
Yeah, guys. I mean, regarding the family plot, as I said in my general thoughts, I think it works really well with the story, especially in the first act, because it helps the main character Jaime a lot in terms of, the audience knowing his personality, what are his values, his motivations. However, I believe that the story drags them too much to the third act to the point where, for example, like personally didn't like much that the granny was like with a big gun and like she wasn't having a heart attack, but the dad that had a heart attack and she was like in the spaceship like flying all over the place. That just seemed like a bit unrealistic, even though it's a superhero movie and all. But it didn't
You'd be
like
surprised.
yeah, it takes like seriousness out of like the movie in a way, but that's like personal, you know. I did love his uncle George Lopez. I think he did a great job, great performance. I think his jokes were always on point. And it was honestly my favorite supporting character in this movie. I believe that like his sister at the beginning was working pretty well, and then the story kind of like forgets about her and kind of like replace her with the love interest, which, by the way, guys, it's the ex-girlfriend of the soccer player Neymar. That was a bit of a shock when I saw it on the screen because I used to follow her before. And when I
Really?
saw her on the big screen in
Whoa.
Blue Beetle, that just blew my mind. She's
Woohoo!
Brazilian. And I
Damn.
was just like, what
Woo.
is she doing here, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
No
Her
Well,
her
way.
name
explain the
is
chemistry.
Bruna Marquesina. But yeah, like,
Interesting.
I was completely surprised by her
That's really
appearance.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, and like, but her character wasn't also like that important in my opinion, and it felt a little bit forced, like her relationship or and like their development in terms of like the love tension they had. Uh, but I mean, in general, I think that the family plot brings a lot of like the culture into the character. However, they don't really make the character shine where it has to shine, which is in the third act. But that's my opinion on the family plot. But also, I want to mention something about the plot, and is that I would have liked to see a little bit more the relationship between Jaime and Blue Beetle, and like that interaction and how it works, this symbiote like within his mind and like the suit because that looked pretty cool. It kind of reminded
I'm
me
with you on that.
of Jarvis with Tony Stark, and how he like guides him in the suit. And obviously we know like in this one with Blue Beetle it's not a technological one, it's actually an alien one. So I would have liked to see a little bit more of that relationship, like how they get comfortable to one another and how they learn, even though they kind of show it, but I would have liked to see a little bit more of that process.
New
But
friendship.
yeah, it's new friendship. Yeah, honestly, I wanted to see a relationship like kind of like Venom with Eddie Brock, uh, like that person with the alter ego. Yeah, I would have liked to see a little bit more development in that, but with what we got was fine. It worked for me, but I would have liked to see a little bit more because it was very interesting. Like the way the suit operated and how it was like testing like the gadgets of the suit, especially like when he first got it, that he went into orbit and then he dropped and he was like testing like the propulsors and everything.
I
So
like how the
I really
sorry.
like that montage. Those like scenes were super fun to me.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I totally agree with yeah, also your point about the plot. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a development as well. But I think hopefully we get that flushed out at a later point with Jaime and Blue Beetle at some point, maybe a second one or maybe in a different movie makes a cameo, something like that. Who knows what we have in the future in the James Gunn verse. But with that being said, I think lastly, really quick, let's go around and share our favorite scenes of this movie. Jazz, go ahead.
I think it's kind of obvious given how I decided to put in the braids today, but the scene with Nana defending vulnerable Jaime because I mean, because his suit was still rebooting from the whole getting code forcefully downloaded and feeling his very being dying. It was with Nana having a giant ass machine gun that she was shooting with complete joy in her eyes while saying, "Down with the imperialists!" and just started laughing like a maniac before she was like, "Okay, time to go now." With Heidi just being like, "What is my Nana?"
Yeah, that Nana terrified me because she was had too much enjoyment, just so and had to look at her eye like, yeah, she's done some shit, she's done
You're
some
just
stuff.
But Alex, what about
Don't
you?
make her. Yeah, for me, my favorite scene is actually an accumulation of like the fight choreography as well as the VFX used for with the Blue Beetle fight scenes where he's literally fighting where he's basically fighting like the court security guys in both in the fortress tunnels as well as when he's like defending his family at his own home. It's a whole mix of like martial arts and stuff like that with him using the scarab Kajida as well as the amazing VFX that's basically seamless where he's trying out all these different weapons on them like sonic blasters, like these little guns that basically straps them to the wall and stuff like that, as well as like these double fisted hammers stuff that he's using and basically just beating them all into like the walls and things like that. I thought it was like really well done. And I think it also kind of shows more with like Jaime Reyes's actor Zolo, who before he was Blue Beetle, he's also in the TV show Cobra Kai, where he basically
yeah, my mom mentioned that he was in Cobra Kai.
yeah, so he has a lot of good experience and background with martial arts stuff like that in the fight choreography. So I think him as Blue Beetle in the fight choreography in that scene, as well again using the various weapons that Blue Beetle used like in the comics and stuff, I thought it was very cool. Probably like my favorite moments in the film. But also that one scene in the third act in the final battle where he basically makes the two blades they created and makes it into like one giant like power sword, stuff like that. I thought that was so dope.
That be some anime shit.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That scene was really cool. Jorge, what about you?
Yes, my favorite scene was definitely the first time he transformed into Blue Beetle. I think that scene was perfect. The special effects, the acting, the comedy. I remember one line that George Lopez said that he said, "It's possessed." You know, that completely cracked me out. I think that was so funny and so relatable to any like Hispanic family. Whenever they see something weird going on, it's like, oh, it's possessed, exorcism right now, you know?
It's something my family and I do all the time whenever
Yeah,
the doors
and
open around
like
us.
the
It's like,
transformation looked very painful, like you could see like his inner body being like hurt by like I don't know, like the alien like taking over his body. And I
you would
really
be
like how like the special effects blended with the score at the moment of the movie, and later, subsequently that same scene, like him like discovering for the first time like the powers that the beetle has, the scarab, and flying into the orbit, like flying around the air, or like testing it out in general. But I found that scene like completely like perfect. Yeah.
it looked painful to have.
It
But then
definitely
again,
It felt like a
Yeah.
horror movie. It felt like a horror
yeah,
movie scene right there with that
then
whole
again, it
basically
definitely,
becoming one with him and making him into the Blue Beetle. That was some
yeah,
horror vibes right there.
Yeah, especially like when
especially
when
with
it
the,
came to his like face, with his eyes, like you could see like the black mantle like taking over his skin, and I was like, whoa, this is like crazy, like
I'm
another
more
level.
scared. I'm more scared of the thought of that thing going up his butt and then attaching to his spine.
Yeah, and
I'm
when he like
way
claw
up in
himself
there.
into the roof too, with kind of like the claws that the suit has, and his whole family like freaking out. I was a big fan
Accurate.
of that scene.
Yeah, I actually for my favorite scene, it's actually I guess kind of a little lame now, but it's basically the same thing Jorge just said because I really truly did love that scene. when he gets shot out of the roof and now he's like going to outer space and he drops down and he's like barely doesn't just die like on the water from coming down, and he's like on fire and stuff. And then
wasn't for the suit, he'd be dead.
Definitely would be dead.
Definitely a charred corpse.
And then going through the city, and then the whole bus scene was hilarious. And I actually thought it was super funny how like it showed those three guys that were like, do y'all feel anything yet? And then like he just comes down and like smashes the car, and then they're like,
hilarious.
guys, I think I do feel it now. That was like so
Feel
funny.
what?
Hilarious.
So that was my favorite scene. I thought that was done really well. I thought the music, like the score, was also really good, and the CG in this was definitely a highlight, especially in that scene. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite scene. So hey, I agree with you, Jorge.
Nice.
But yeah, so I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I want to give a special thank you to Jazz for joining us. We definitely enjoyed having you on. Thank you so much for being here. I think we are probably gonna have you back later on in the on the channel when we do some reviews on the Hellboy series of movies. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please click that thumbs up down there. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. And if you like content like this or videos like this, we put out videos every week reviewing movies and TV shows. Next week, we're actually very excited. We're going to be starting our review series for the Ahsoka TV show that's coming on Disney Plus. We cannot wait for that. We're going to have our friend Wyatt back for that one and bringing in his expertise on the Star Wars franchise along with us on that journey. So please make sure to be subscribed so that you can get notifications when we do upload those videos and others. But also, what were your thoughts on the Blue Beetle movie? Have you seen it? Have you not seen it? Do you plan on seeing it? Please let us know. We'd love to engage in some conversation in the comments about Blue Beetle, everything Blue Beetle, and the future of DC in general, right? The James Gunn verse has officially started, so we're super excited.
DCU is coming.
Yes. So we're very
Finally.
excited for that. Honestly, it's about time, right? We get some fresh stuff. Hopefully, we have faith in James Gunn, so can't wait for the future of DC. But me personally, with a little bit of a wall up, because I still won't give him my full confidence until I see at least the first product. But all signs point towards a better result than the past, because how much worse can it get, right? But
Don't
yeah.
make sense.
At least we're getting some direction here. At least we actually got a plan.
Right. So, but with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Big Screen Show, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Later.